footlights.
Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you tonight to the Mayor's Listening Tour. My name is Mark Holland, Mayor of the Unified Government, Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and I appreciate your coming out on what can only be described as a very dreary day. Though I will say, as I was driving west tonight, I did see a hint of a sunset. So the sun is still circling the Earth, or we're circling it, and it will come out hopefully tomorrow. But it's been kind of a dreary couple days. But I appreciate your coming out tonight. Nevertheless, I do understand that we're going head to head with a middle school volleyball game right now. And we might lose that competition. But they're across the way. If you're supposed to be at a volleyball game, you're missing it. It's over there. You've stumbled into the Mayor's Listening Tour. I do want to share a number of thank yous before we get going. First of all, I want to thank all of the facilitators. You'll be broken up into groups with small group facilitators. All of them are volunteers. Many of them have volunteered for most or all of the previous 6, and this is our 7th listening tour. We are going to each of the districts in numeric order, which is why you're number 7. And the last one will be at Schlegel High School coming up in December. So we appreciate all the volunteers who have helped make this happen. Let's give them a big hand. I also want to thank my staff, without whom we could not make this happen. My Chief of Staff, Maureen Mahoney, Rachel Boteo, Jason Banks, Bill Hurlbrink, Lindsay Begum, and Lucas Behrens are all, you saw some of them at the table, some are in here, but let's give them a big hand too. I couldn't have done that. I also have a number of folks that we want to have an opportunity to greet you, and so I'm going to start with the host mayor. Remember, you have 2 mayors in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. And so your number 1 mayor, Jeff Harrington, if you'd come up for a moment. And Tiny, come up with him, John McTaggart, mayor of Edwardsville.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's an honor to be here. My name is Jeff Harrington, the mayor of Bonner Springs, and I am one of the 2 mayors that you have here in Bonner Springs. The county government has the mayor CEO, and in Bonner Springs we enjoy our own independence and have our own city government, of which I'm the mayor, as well as many of our city councilmen are here this evening also. And I would just appreciate it if those of you that are here would stand up and just wave. We won't go individually, but there you go. Thank you all for coming. There you go. I appreciate their efforts in trying to help the city of Bonner Springs do the best we can, and all of your involvement too. So thank you all for coming tonight. Welcome to this great new auditorium facility that the school district has. We enjoy a lot of cooperation with this school district, and it's an honor to host this tonight. So thank you very much, Mark.
Good evening. My name is John McTaggart. I'm mayor of Edwardsville. Since Mayor Harrington has given you a civic lesson about the structure of government, I won't go through all of that. But I would like to welcome everybody. I really appreciate Mayor Holland, you being here and coming to the listening tour to this part of the county. It's really a unique experience and really looking forward to it. So welcome again tonight and have a good time.
So in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, you have representation on the unified government. So you all get to vote for not only your mayor and city council, but also for the mayor CEO of the unified government. You also get to vote for 3 commissioners. Your in-district commissioner, District 7, your at-large District 2, which is the representative of the southern portion, and you also get to vote for at-large District 1, which is a representative of the northern district, but the whole county votes on both at-large. So of the 11 representatives at the unified government, you get to vote for 4 of them. And so we have an opportunity tonight to welcome your 2 commissioners, and 2 of the commissioners. Melissa Bynum is the at-large District 1. This is the first one she was not able to make of the listening tour. So she sends her regards tonight. But I would like to introduce you to Hal Walker, you're at large District 2. I'd ask you to come up and say a few words. And also Jim Walters, who is your District 7 representative, if you would come up as well.
Well, good evening and thanks for coming. I'm Hal Walker. One of the things that I hope comes out of the discussion from this district is the ways in which the unified government can provide resources and assistance to the county government or to the individual city governments. As you know, we operate both a county budget and a city budget. And the money that we're talking about is sales tax dollars. These sales tax dollars have been dedicated for the last 17 years to paying off bonds that built the Speedway, that built the Legends, built the Village West. And it's rightfully so that a portion of that money is county sales tax. And that is, of course, what you are part of, and part of that county sales tax should benefit the 7th District or the Edwardsville, Bonner, and a portion of Kansas City, Kansas. So we're looking for ideas, and we've been looking for ideas on what you need from us. I mean, money obviously is the key, but what is it that your governing bodies could utilize these funds for? Road improvements, infrastructure, sewers, etc. So I welcome you. It was a tough night to get out, and we appreciate you being here. Your comments will be tabulated, I guess would be the word, perhaps, along with the other districts and considered. But give us some fresh ideas. Give us something that we can be of value to your community in this area. Thank you.
As Mayor Holland said, I'm Jim Walters. The auditorium looks great. It looks a lot different than when I was here about 40 years ago or so. Thanks for everyone coming out. One of the things that I wanted to accomplish when I ran, or one of the things I hoped to accomplish, was to get a lot of cooperation between Edwardsville and Bonner and the unified government. And to see everybody come, all the elected representatives coming here tonight, is really fulfilling for me. I want to echo Hal's thoughts on bringing forward ideas. We've talked a little bit. I know it's confusing, the unified government and the various city governments, but essentially in Edwardsville and Bonner, it's part of the county. There are a lot of county services that are provided through the unified government. You may not think of them all each day, but anything with the name Wyandotte County in it is the unified government, whether it's Wyandotte County Sheriff, Wyandotte County Detention Facility, Wyandotte County Health Department, Wyandotte County Parks and Recreation. All of these things are Wyandotte County issues that people in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville can enjoy and benefit from just as much as anyone else. And the unified government is a big landowner in Bonner Springs with the Wyandotte County Park, Sunflower Golf Course, the amphitheater. So it's really a good thing for everybody to be talking and thinking about the future as we all go about this together. Thanks.
The hardest thing about working with Walters and Walker is when everyone mixes up their names. So in roll call, I'd say it's about 50-50 that they call your name right. And I participate in that mix-up as well, but Walters, Walker. So, all right. Thank you all very much. We also have with us tonight former couple former mayors and former elected officials. If you're a former elected official in the room, would you please stand so we can greet you and thank you for your work? There they are. Thank you. We also have the county administrator, Doug Bach. Doug Bach is here. Doug, can you please stand? Doug Bach's our county administrator. So what I want to do tonight is I want to frame the situation of where we are in Wyandotte County and what this opportunity means for us. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a history lesson, because people ask me all the time, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have one of the highest tax rates in the region and in the state. We send you that memo every year, yes, reminding you. And one of the things I want to do is I want to describe a little bit about the history of how we got there. And I say it this way, I say it as explanation, not as excuse. But I think it is helpful to know some of the history that has driven our mill levy rate, and I think helps shape our conversation in terms of the kind of services we need. I will do a little bit of an introduction. I'm Mark Holland. I'm fourth generation Wyandotte County. I'm a third generation United Methodist pastor in the community. I've been the pastor at Trinity United Methodist Church at 51st and Parallel since 1999. My dad pastored 2 different churches in KCK. My mom taught in District 500 schools for 16 years. So long time in Kansas City, Kansas, came back in 1999 to take the church at Trinity, ran for commissioner at large, District 1 in 2007, ran for re-election in 2011, and then ran for mayor in 2013. So I've been in this office for about 2.5 years. So I have, as I like to say, you know, my family has been around long enough to see the city rise and to see it fall and to see it rise again. And so there's been a lot of dramatic change in Kansas City, Kansas. So I want to take you on a history lesson a little bit. And I use Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County interchangeably. So if you will forgive me in Bonner and Edwardsville tonight, sometimes I will say the wrong one. I'll say Kansas City, Kansas, or Wyandotte County. But when I speak outside of the community, I use them interchangeably. But Kansas City, Kansas, in 1950 was the largest city in the state of Kansas. In 1960, we had 185,000 people in the city. From 1960 to 2000, we experienced a phenomenon, a national phenomenon that hit every urban center in America, which was white flight. And so we had 60,000 white people move out of Kansas City, Kansas, and 30,000 people of other ethnicities move in. I want you to think about the magnitude of those numbers. 60,000 of 185,000 is nearly a full third of the population moved out of the community. 30,000 people moved in, and if you think about the delta, that's about 30,000 fewer people, which is almost 20% of the population of the city. That loss of population was devastating to our economy, it was devastating to our community, and we went from 20% above the median household income in 1960 to 20% below the median household income by the year 2000. So the city saw this dramatic transition, and when you have 30,000 fewer people in a city, you have about 10,000 empty homes. So picture that for a minute, 10,000 empty homes. And in fact, I don't know how many residences you have in Bonner and Edwardsville, but you have about a population combined of about 10,000, yes? So 4,000 to 5,000, 6,000 homes probably about 6,000 homes. So with this transition, picture that, 10,000 empty homes in Kansas City, Kansas. And when you have economics 101, right? Supply and demand, as supply went up, demand went down, the valuation went down, and through the years, the city would simply, in order to capture that loss of value, would incrementally raise the mill levy a little bit at a time over 40 years. Because it turns out it costs the same amount of money to pave a city street, whether there's a $50,000 house in front of it or a $500,000 house in front of it. Asphalt costs the same across the metro area. And so in order to capture the loss of value, there was an increase in the mill levy that happened over time, mostly on the city side, but also on the county side. In fact, our county mill levy remains one of the lowest of the urban areas in the state of Kansas. But our city mill levy in Kansas City, Kansas is still exceptionally high. So that challenge you also think about 10,000 empty homes begin to fall down. And the unified government now owns 6,000 empty lots where homes have fallen down or have been torn down. And I give this offer everywhere I go, everywhere I speak. If you will agree to mow one of those, I will give it to you tonight. That's a bargain, right? But the 6,000 empty lots do not pay property tax. And so that raises the burden on the rest of the properties in our community. And so I like to give that little bit of history lesson because people always ask me, why do we have such high taxes? Well, there's some historic realities, and then there's the challenge that we have in order to bring that down. So in the mid-90s, Kansas City, Kansas was still struggling, and a group of citizens got together. We're pretty fed up with the government not going anywhere, the city and county governments fighting with one another, and the dysfunction in the government was not helping the city grow. And the citizens came together and voted overwhelmingly in 1997 to unify the government. One of the compromises that I think has been very successful was for Bonner and Edwardsville to maintain the city council and city structure that has allowed you to continue to provide city services, and then to unify Kansas City, Kansas with Wyandotte County, because I believe 90% of the geography and 90% of the population is Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County. So that unification of government has been beneficial. Our mill levy overall is down 16% from when unification first happened. But after the unification, then there was an effort to, the first project that came was the effort to bring the Speedway. And many of you, of course, remember this. There were about 150 homes in that area. And I believe 100, and I need to get these numbers exactly right, but I believe 130 of those were purchased and about 20 went to condemnation. A very problematic decision by the government to do that back in the day. I always say it was about half Hail Mary by a community that wasn't going anywhere and half visionary of what might be. But you fast forward to today, and the Speedway being built, and the 400 acres adjacent to it that the unified government purchased, has moved this city forward dramatically in terms of the opportunity that we have today. That development prior, those 150 homes, paid to the county, city and county about $200,000 combined in property taxes. Today, that area represents 10% of the total valuation of our city. That area today pays over $12 million annually in property taxes. The only entity out there that is tax exempt is the Speedway. Everyone else is paying property taxes in the Village West area. That area also now, for retail in that area, I don't know how many of you remember what was out there for retail. We had a gas station with a liquor store and a Kentucky Fried. Do you remember? And all the jobs that went with that? Yes? Today, that area has over 9,000 jobs that benefit the whole wider area. That area generates over $650 million in sales. Now, those sales numbers are very important because they speak to the STAR bonds that we're going to talk about tonight. There are a number of economic development tools that you have in your toolbox to help companies grow in a community. The most common one is tax increment financing. It's called TIF financing. I'm sure you are familiar with that, or at least have heard of that. Tax increment financing means this. You have an empty lot that's paying $100 a year in property taxes, but they want to build a store. So we take their property, they build the store, and then the property tax that they generate, $100 of it goes to the city or the county to stay whole because they've always paid that. And the increment, the additional amount of property tax that they pay on their new facility goes to pay back the investment in that project. That can be over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but 10 years tends to be our limit. But tax increment financing is entirely local money. STAR bonds are different because while TIF can do property tax, it can also do sales tax. They call it a super TIF if you use both. STAR bonds only use sales tax. But the biggest difference is this. When you use TIF money, it's all local money, city and county. When you use STAR bonds, 2/3 of it is state money. So STAR bonds stand for sales tax revenue bonds, and they are bonds that go towards, from the companies themselves as they generate sales tax. That sales tax is all captured to pay off the bonds that paid the infrastructure. To give you an idea, we put out about $450 million in STAR bonds, which by the way is a huge number, and it leveraged $1.5 billion in private investment. So for every dollar of STAR bonds, we received $3 of private investment. And now those STAR bonds are going to pay off after 17 years. And those STAR bonds then are revenue that will come back to us. About $50 million of it goes to the state, and about $12 million will come back to the unified government. Of that $12 million, I believe about $9 million, and Doug Bach here can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe $9 million of that comes to the city and about $3 million comes to the county side of the equation. So one of the challenges in coming to talk to this group about how we invest that money is Bonner and Edwardsville benefit from the county side, but half of District 7 live in KCK. So half the population of District 7 is in Bonner and Edwardsville, and the other half is KCK. But we decided to have this listening tour here in Bonner Springs because we thought we would get at the high school. We've been trying to hold them at high schools because they tend to be community gathering places already. But we really want to hear your input on how we can best invest this money, because I will say this, even though many of the things you'll look at tonight are city services that reflect on Kansas City, Kansas, that I believe that Kansas City, Kansas being healthier is better for our whole county. And what I would be interested in is we collate the results from the different districts to see if the folks in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville have a different view in terms of how that money would be invested than others. But we also do have money that will be specific for county funding and things that you could apply. We do this, if you go on the website, wicokck.org, and there's a picture of me, and if you click on my face, but I ask everyone to click gently, yes, there's no sense in pounding on my face. You can just click gently on my face. You'll see the listening tour, and you can pull up in the listening tour all the results from all of the different listening tours that we've had already. And also, every comment that you write on your sheet, all of those are tabulated, unedited, and just put out on the internet so everyone can see every comment that someone has. That's been very helpful to make sure that we get as much positive feedback as possible to understand how we can best invest this. The other piece that I want you to think about is when we invest dollars in a city, it's just like investing it in your home. There's money that you can invest one time, or money you can invest repeatedly year to year. So let me give you an example. If we used $1 million to debt finance projects, we have committed that $1 million for the next 20 years in debt service, right? So you basically spent that $1 million one time. If you put the $1 million into road projects as a cash project, the next year that road's done and you have $1 million that you can invest either in another road or another project. That's money that you can spend repeatedly. The other issue is if you invest in a mill levy reduction, $1 million mill levy reduction, because you make a commitment that money is committed year after year after year. But this $12 million we will receive annually. Every dollar you commit permanently, we can't recommit a different year because no one wants you bouncing the mill levy up and down. Mostly people want to see a steady decline in the mill levy over time. So I want you to think about that because I think that spending it once or spending it multiple times is very important. I do want to say that Kansas City, Kansas and Wyandotte County are in a tremendously positive position now. And a lot of it is just I can quantify numerically what the Legends has meant to our community. It's hard to quantify the benefit of morale, of a community seeing success within ourselves and seeing us move forward. I do have some key priorities in terms of taking investment that has happened in the West from Kansas City, Kansas perspective to investing in Indian Springs and investing in downtown. Those are two areas of need that have been long neglected and I believe need some reinvestment. It's also important to note that since 2010, Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas have had our first net growth in population in 50 years. Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County is growing again, and that is great news. And not only are we growing, we boast the strongest level of diversity of any community in the state and of any community in the region. In fact, only Wyandotte County and Broward County, Florida, which is where Miami is, has the same statistic that the two of us have this in common. We have no ethnic majority. We're about 42% white, 28% Latino, 26% African American, with a growing Asian population. And we're one of the only two communities where all three of the major ethnic groups are above 25% population rate. So we have a growing, diverse community, which is the kind of community I want to raise my family in, and the kind of community that particularly younger people are interested in moving towards. If you had asked people in 1960 if having a diverse community was a good idea, many would have said no. If you ask people today, many people say yes, a diverse community is the way the world is and the way a place that we want to live. So Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas has so much to offer right now, and a lot of the positives that we have to offer are because of the recent success. 30% of all new jobs created in the state of Kansas last year were created in Wyandotte County. 30% of all jobs. We have 5% of the population, and we created 30% of all the new jobs. That is a fantastic statistic. The biggest challenge that we have is connecting our citizens to these great jobs. Because we remain having one of the highest earned wages, but one of the lowest earned incomes, because many of the people who have these great jobs live elsewhere. But connecting our citizens to these great jobs is a huge part of my economic development. I'm also working on innovation, and innovation not just in bringing innovative companies to our community, but innovation in how we operate as a unified government. We've done several innovative things recently. We've recently put the entire unified government budget on the internet under OpenGov, but you can go to our website at the Unified Government and you can see the entire budget, every department, how much is being spent in every department and for what, over a 10-year trend. So any information you want in terms of the budget, just open government and transparency is very important to us. You should see how your government's spending your money. There's also a piece that communities have where they're using technology to improve access to services. We remind one another all the time, the unified government is simply a service organization. We exist to serve the community, and we should not lose sight of that reality. We don't exist to serve ourselves, we exist to serve our community. And the more effectively we can do that, the better. There are communities that have 311 apps on their cell phones that you can actually take your cell phone. If you have a smartphone and you're not afraid of it, amen. My mom has a smartphone and she's terrified of the whole thing. But you can actually use your smartphone and tap the 311 app and go to graffiti, take a picture of the graffiti, hit send. It will use a satellite location on your phone to tell the city where it is. And instead of going to a call center, it'll send it directly to the truck of the person who's responsible for abating graffiti. And when they have finished on their tablet, in their truck, they'll hit done, and you'll get a text message saying that it's been abated. That kind of technology exists today, and many communities have it, and I think we should come to expect more from the unified government in terms of that caliber of technology. So those are some innovation things we're working on. Finally, my three priorities: economic development, innovation, and healthy communities. Wyandotte County still needs to improve our overall health, and working with healthy communities, Wyandotte has been a big focus area in communication, education, healthy infrastructure, access to healthy food, and access to health care, as well as ceasing smoking cessation. We will be voting this Thursday on a measure for tobacco cessation, which would be to raise the age of someone purchasing tobacco products from 18 to 21 with an effort to get it out of high school. If you talk to people who are addicted to smoking, they will tell you they got addicted in high school. And if we can get it out of the high schools, the chances of keeping people off of it long term are better. The sad fact is, tobacco, if used as intended, will kill 1/3 of its users. And if we can do anything to keep our kids from getting hooked early, we're going to be better off, but that's going to be a vote coming up this Thursday. So that's a little background for what we're going to do tonight. So in a minute, I'm going to have you break into small groups. You have a number on your name tag, and you're going to go to that small group. And those small groups are located, does someone know where those small groups are located? Because it's not in here. Does it say where it is? In the cafeteria? Yeah, I think we're going to the cafeteria. But don't get your hopes up, there's not like a lot of food or anything. It's just a meeting, it's not food. So you've been sold a bill of goods if you came for food. But we're going to break you up into the small groups, and we have facilitators that are going to walk you through. You get to spend $12 million today, and you don't get asked to do that all the time. You're going to fill out your form, but then you're going to need to talk with your group in a democratic process to come up with how to best allocate those funds and for what purposes. I will tell you this, because one of the issues is mill levy reduction. So I'm going to give you an example of mill levy reduction. Currently, in Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, if we invested $1 million towards your mill levy and took your and lowered it 1 mil, you would save approximately $12 per year on a house valued at $100,000. Okay, so a $100,000 house would save $12. If we put all $12 million into property tax reduction, you would a person with a $100,000 house would save about $150 a year. So what we need to do is to talk about how much we want to apply to property tax reduction, and that's the first one on your list of how much you want to apply of the $12 million you would like to see applied towards mill levy reduction. But that's a conversation you'll have in your small group. You'll come to a consensus. We'll come back into this room, and each group will have an opportunity to present. So tonight you will hear the results from all the other groups, and then hopefully you will go home at some point and look at your internet, and you can see how the other districts have allocated funds as well. It's proven to be a great exercise, and your input matters. I really appreciate your coming out tonight, taking the time on a dreary evening to come out. As we still, though, I don't care how much it's raining, the Royals still won the World Series, right? Woohoo! All right, so on that happy note, go Royals. Please head out to your small group, and I'll be here all evening. If you have any questions, I'll be milling around. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate you coming back for the feedback sessions and an opportunity to hear what the different groups came up with. So, and again, it'll take our staff a couple weeks to get it all tabulated and up online for this particular one, but you can certainly go see the previous 6 right now if you'd like online. We do want to remind you that we want your evaluations. So if you have your evaluations, please turn those in before you leave. Your feedback is very helpful, and I will tell you, the feedback on the first 3 or 4 really helped us kind of streamline our process and improve it. So you've been the beneficiary of other folks' evaluations, but we would like yours as well. And we also want your input from the budget survey, because again, we will tabulate the comments that are on there as well. So with that, I'm going to have Group 6 come up first and present.
Good evening. Group 6 was made up of the majority of the people from Bonner Springs. There were a couple from KCK area. So in all the situations where the money would be going towards sister or toward a city-specific service, they want to make sure that it's understood that they want sister cities to be included in that. So it would be split between Bonner, Edwardsville, and KCK. County services, as said before, those are pretty well county-wide. So they came up with $1.2 million for property tax reduction. It's just a token amount, but it's something to see it going down. Demolitions, about $800,000. Code enforcement was $500,000. Street resurfacing, $1.8 million. A caveat in that was they wanted to see a lot of it going toward county roads. The $150,000 for mowing, $400,000 additional for snow removal, $750,000 for aging services. We had quite a bit of feedback and comments and discussion on the amount for aging services. $300,000 added to the personal property auto registration. $1 million for park improvements, and a lot of that should be going toward increasing youth services in our city and giving them more opportunities. $1.5 million for police services. They would like to see that spread in all the sister cities. $800,000 for fire services, same there. And then they put a little over $1.5 million into other, which included, among other things, sewers, storm drains, and water services like that, that everyone knows that our city overall, in our entire county, is aging and needs to be fixed up. So I want to thank Group 6. You guys were wonderful, and I really liked all the feedback. Great, lively discussion. Thank you.
All right, we'll go with group number 1.
Good evening. My name is Jason Banks, and I facilitated Group 1, and I want to say thank you to all the members of Group 1. We had a really lively discussion. Pretty similar sentiment amongst the group in terms of making sure that as this $12 million is prioritized, that Bonner and Edwardsville don't get lost in that shuffle. So I want to thank the group for that discussion. Where we landed, we had a pretty good spread. We kind of did a two-step process to narrow our list, and we ended up with $3 million going to property tax relief. And there was a really healthy discussion around kind of the messaging that was going on when the STAR bonds were initially issued. $1 million towards aging, and Ms. Marianne Flunder lobbied very healthy for that. Police, $1 million. Fire, $1 million. Health services related to, similar to aging, but related to supporting those that don't have insurance in our community, $1 million. Auto tax, and as it's listed on the sheet, it's a little bit different than the context here. This was a specific reference to reducing the auto registration tax paid by citizens in Bonner Springs, and so I wanted to make that point. Park improvements, $500,000. Youth services, which surfaced under the other category several times, $2 million, and investment in infrastructure, $500,000. So thanks again to Group 1, and I appreciate spending this evening with you.
We'll have group number 8 come up next.
Group 8 was great, I will just say that. Are they still in the room? Let's clap. Oh yeah, we had a good time. All right, so I will let you know that we spent all $12 million, and we had a lively discussion. Tax relief is at $2.6 million, demolitions at $500,000, codes at $600,000, streets at $2.5, mowing at $300,000. Snow removal at $500,000, aging $2 million, auto registration $200,000, parks. Now this was unique. We not only said we wanted to spend $1 million in parks, but we wanted to also see within that million some community pools coming back into Wyandotte County. Police $900,000 and fire $900,000. I will say that we did have one other. We didn't know how we were going to fund it, but we did have another that's called Sci-Fi to really kind of look at how we could help both Bonner and Edwardsville spend some money on infrastructure. So, thank you.
All right, we'll have group number 3 and then group number 10 on deck.
Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca and I helped to facilitate group number 3. Thank you all. We had some great discussion. We did a lot of math together and everyone made it out okay. So we spread our money out pretty well. We put $2.25 million towards property tax relief. For demo, we put $0.75 million, code enforcement $0.5, street resurfacing $1.5 million, mowing vacant lots $0.25, snow removal $0.5, aging services we put $1 million, and we did mention specifically looking at ADA ramps for that category. For the auto registration, we put $0.1, park improvements $1 million, police services $1 million, fire services, police services $0.75 million, sorry, fire services $1 million, and then we had a few other categories, and there was some really good discussion about that. Alternative transportation, including sidewalks, bike lanes, sharrows, that type of thing, especially bus infrastructure. That was something that was really important to the group. And we put $500,000 there. We put $1 million into reserves, and then youth and young adult services. So also including those 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. We put $0.9 million, and there's a particular focus on helping homeless youth. Thank you.
everyone. My name is Vanessa Von West. And, oh, wow, go Group 10, all right. Luke and I facilitated Group 10, and we believe they were great rock stars. So thank you all for your comments and your feedback. As you can see from our report here, the sentiments of this group were very clear, and their priorities were all in alignment. As they considered where to allocate the money, they thought a lot about how things would impact them here in Edwardsville and Bonner Springs. And as I think many of you all know, a lot of the mill levy taxes have not come back to the cities. And so they wanted to focus on the areas of emphasis that were really utilizing that money here in the city. So, as you can see, we allocated $9.2 million to the property tax reduction. So this group felt strongly that higher property taxes were a deterrent to folks moving and staying within the county, and they wanted to do something about that, recognizing what a great place this is to live. Secondly, they recognized that our population is aging, and they wanted to do a good job of making sure that we had resources for folks as they needed more assistance in their older years and as they became more seasoned citizens. Next, we wanted to make sure that the streets and road improvements were up to par. There was mention about a past mill levy for which the residents here are still taxed, but needing more clarification on where that money is going, and then if there's additional money available, they'd like some of that to go to streets. Additionally, crime. Crime is an issue, and it's another deterrent to getting people to stay and live here, and so providing $400,000 to the police and fire too in order to elevate safety were very important. And then the sewer. This was not something that was on the list, but it's something that some of the other groups have also brought up, especially this West Wyandotte County area that is kind of south of the Legends. Those folks are using, not sewers, what is that called? The septic systems. So we wanted to provide some help there. Auto registration. An important point that this group wanted to clarify is that they want that auto registration money to go towards a reduction in fees, the reduction in the tax. They didn't feel like we needed more folks there to process the paperwork, but they wanted to see their prices, their charges come down. And then lastly, parks and snow removal were warranting of some of our funds. So again, thank you, Group 10.
It was pointed out to me earlier too, interesting, of those issues, aging services is a county service, auto registration is a county service, and parks is funded both city and county, so it also receives county money, so it's interesting to see those come back because those are on the county side of the ledger. We'll go to group number 4. Look at that enthusiasm.
Thank you to that one person. Appreciate it. My name is Bill Hurlbrink. I have the pleasure of facilitating Group 4 this evening. We set ourselves up for a lot of discussion, whereas on our individual tallies, we had a handful of folks that put a lot of money in a couple places, and then we had some folks who spread that money throughout a large variety of categories. So we didn't quite come to a consensus in the end, $12 million, but we did find some consensus in a few areas, particularly in street resurfacing and infrastructure. Folks want to make sure that Edwardsville and Bonner Springs see the fruits of this money as well in the streets, in the sidewalks, in the curbs, and in the sewer. So they had $1 million to Edwardsville for street resurfacing, $1 million to Bonner Springs, and also $1 million to the unified government. And also the Sci-Fi funding also came up in our group as well. Apparently it was a funding mechanism back in the early 2000s that fell out around the recession. So that was brought up in our discussion. Also $2 million for park improvements with the mention of improving shelters and trails. And then also with Bonner Park, or Wyandotte County Park, having the Wyandotte County Museum, finding a better location for that. And the building was brought up in Bonner Springs, the 1915 building, I think, 1918 building, pretty close. And utilizing that as more of a central location for the great museums that we have in Wyandotte County to encourage more people to go see them. In our other categories where we spent a chunk of the money, folks wanted to spend between $1 and $2 million on an agency that our community is lacking, which is a consumer protection agency, something to help protect citizens in doing business. and also $4.5 million to homeless services and to rehabilitation services for our homeless, including our homeless children and homeless veterans. But also in our other category, we came up with ideas on bike trail, also a county-wide bike trail, also a quality of life fund that can be added to, used and figured out at a later time, and raises for public employees and public transportation were also in our other categories. So thank you.
I will say the Sci-Fi Fund was mentioned in a number of places. Sci-Fi stands for the County Infrastructure Financing Initiative that was in place in the early 2000s. And at the recession, I don't remember if it was 9 or 10, was when that was no longer funded. But there's a long memory here in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, is there not? So if you haven't heard of Sci-Fi, that's what it stands for. And when I was first elected and they were talking about a Sci-Fi Fund, I was thinking about something very different. But, all right, we'll go now to group number 9.
Hello, my name is Mark Wiebe, and I facilitated a very robust discussion among 4 people, and this is what we came up with. I will say that again, a theme, as I'm hearing with the other groups, is they want to make sure that Bonner and Edwardsville are represented in this distribution of the money, and so you'll see this in here. I'm going to talk about tax relief in a second, but aging services, again, is like that's a county service. Parks, they argued that even city parks in Kansas City, Kansas are a benefit to some people here in Bonner because they use them. They like to go to some of the city parks. We also saw those are the only 2 that were already kind of on the list. And then they went with a $2 million pay raise for all non-sworn UG employees, which would be the equivalent of about 2%, I think, per year, or at least for just 1 year. But I guess if it's over in the next several years, it would be 2% every year. So that was very important to our group. And then also you'll see at the bottom kind of a variation on this Sci-Fi thing again, only specifically for street resurfacing, according to a formula that would be distributed to KCK, Bonner, and Edwardsville. And on top, you see $2 million for tax relief. I want to say just a word about that. We started out on one end, we had somebody who said 0, arguing that really there's not much impact to the individual homeowner. And then on the other side, we saw somebody saying $6.7 million. And we were able to come to a consensus on this saying $2 million. And the argument basically was that we need to show some movement on that tax relief if we're going to show other people outside of Wyandotte County that we're serious about lowering taxes. So that's where we came from on that.
We'll have group 5. And then 2 and 7 are the last ones. So if you want to make your way up towards the front, we'll have 2. Oh, well, you can't get much closer to the front than that. So excellent work.
Well, good evening. I'm Gordon Criswell, and I facilitated group number 5. We had 6 folk in our group. So let me preference my numbers by saying this. Numbers I'm going to share with you represent the average dollar amount to be spent in a category among the 6 people in the group. So what I did was we asked everyone in the group how much money you would spend in a particular area, and then we totaled that number and divided it by 6 to get the average. And I got their permission to do that before we started. So for property relief, the average was $4.3 million from Group 5. And a similar discussion about the impact of of property relief on your property taxes, our property taxes. A similar theme that you've heard from other groups tonight. Lots of discussion around demolition of residential and commercial structures. Spent some time explaining why that's problematic from a quality of life standpoint. So the average among Group 5 was $283,000. Code enforcement, the average was $50,000. Street resurfacing, $916,000 was the average. Group 5 didn't want to spend any money on mowing vacant lots. Of course, mowing someone else's property should be that property owner's responsibility, and we spent a good bit of time explaining why we mow vacant lots when we are trying to find the absentee landowner who may be hiding their property behind a LLC legal structure, and the challenges of trying to cull that person out. Snow removal, plowing, and treatment, the average was $33,000. Aging services, this was a lively discussion about aging services because I don't think our group had a sense of the variety of services that are provided on the aging side. And we have an increasing aging population in our community, so they wanted to spend about $266,000 on aging services. The personal property auto registration at the courthouse and annex, again, we explained the computer system and how we're getting better, but they thought we should spend about $16,600. That was the average to spend there. And again, sort of the theme was how do you reduce what individuals pay for their automobile registration. Park improvements was $3.3 million, and in that $3.3 million there was discussion of a county aquatics center because we don't have enough places for young people to swim and learn to swim. Police services, the average was $466,000. Fire services, $366,600. And then in the other category, and I will say I always try to get the groups I facilitate to the other category because there are things that don't fall, that citizens want some investment in that don't fit into these categories. So in our other category, we had two. One was infrastructure, $3.3 million, and then mental health services was just under $703,000, and then anything that was left would go to our fund balance. Thank you, group, very much.
All right, we'll move now to Group 2, and then last but not least will be lucky number 7. Thank you for the shout out, 7.
Hi, my name is Michelle Warren, and I have the pleasure of working with group number 2. Before I begin, I kind of want to share with you that my group, we gave stories, and so we understood where each person was coming from and how they wanted to spend their money. It gave a lot of background to one another in our group to understand why they wanted to spend the money the way that they did. And it gave understanding and also empathy throughout our group. And I want to say that that was huge, I felt, to giving reason as to why we wanted to spend our money the way we did. My group felt that they wanted to spend property tax relief for $2 million. They felt that it was important to decrease the amount that residents in the Wyandotte County and Bonner Springs, Edwardsville area are spending in property tax, but they also wanted to allocate that money to other areas as well. So demos, $100,000, code enforcement, $500,000, They also wanted to give street resurfacing $1 million. Our group chose not to allocate any funds towards mowing or snow removal services. They then wanted to give aging services $1.3 million. They felt that it was important for our aging community to have the services that they needed. And they also recognized that a large portion of the Wyandotte County, Kansas City area is aging. So they wanted to give them the services that they needed. Auto registration, $100,000. Parks, $2 million. Police, $800,000. Fire, $700,000. And also mental health services, $2 million. And then we also had another category and concern, which was our water main system throughout the Bonner Springs area. Currently, we have a very good filtration system, but however, the water mains that are underground are about 100 years old or older. And so when the water reaches our homes, the water becomes very hard and it may break our dishwashers or other appliances in our home. So it was very important to bring a focus to the water main systems in our area as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, group number 7. Bat and cleanup.
All right, group number 7. Can I get a shout out? 7. My name is Lindsay. I facilitated group number 7, and my most important job, and probably the best work I did, was recruit Jack to report out on our behalf. So I'm going to let Jack do that.
In other words, I got stuck doing it. Jack Hewlin, resident of Bonner Springs. Thank Lindsay for a great job, and her lovely assistant Tip Laughlin, who did all the math for us, I think. So we really kind of focused on the fact that really only about a quarter of the $12 million is going to be used countywide, which is really what's going to affect Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. So we focused on that, and we really believe resurrecting the Sci-Fi program and putting $3 million, which is about a fourth of that, directly towards Sci-Fi. So it's been a program that's worked really well for both communities. I know Bonner Springs has used it while it was alive to do street work, to build a trail on 134th from Kansas Avenue to the pool. So it's made a big impact for the community, and we think that's a great program to use that kind of money for. So then kind of jumping back up, the other 3 forces, probably KCK money, but we'll spend our money for them. So we put $3 million for tax relief, $500,000 for demo, and $500,000 for codes. Those are important for quality of life for the community. Mowing, which you don't like to have the city doing it, but it ends up having to happen, and it costs money to do that because you don't want to live next door to a place that's not being taken care of or across the street from one. We had $250,000 for snow, $500,000 for area. The area agency on aging is important. I know Bonner Springs gets a certain amount of funds every year to help fund our senior center, which is very important to keep that very vibrant facility going and that group going. We had 0 for auto. Parks, $1 million. Wyandotte County Park is in Bonner Springs, so any improvements there certainly affects Bonner Springs and all the residents of the county as well. We had police and fire at 0, and again, that gets us back to Sci-Fi. So that we thought that was important from our perspective, which is very insulated by virtue of the fact that a fourth of the money is probably about a fourth is going to go to Bonner and Edwardsville. So again, Sci-Fi is important to us. Thanks.
All right, that wraps up the meeting tonight. I do want to thank you all again very much for joining hundreds of citizens from around our community to have come out for these. We've averaged about 80 per event, and so between 80 and 100 per event. So we've had great response. We've had over 600 people already attend these, and the input directly from the citizens is really invaluable to us doing our job. We believe, again, that we're a service organization, and our job is to serve the citizens of the community, And anytime that we can get feedback and listen to your concerns and your feedback, we can do a better job serving you. So I really appreciate you coming out and taking an evening away from whatever else you're going to do tonight, and giving us a chance to hear from you today. I do think that we still have a little over an hour before tip-off for KU. Basketball season is here. I know all of us KU fans have been waiting desperately for basketball season to start because football has been tough. So anyway, thank you again, and if you need anything else, we did have index cards. If you have a specific concern that you want from the unified government, please fill out one of those index cards and give them to someone at the tables as you leave, and we'll be sure to follow up with you on those. Thank you again. Good night.